Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are doing a forest in 4 styles. All brushes are linked down below. So for now I'm just starting off with a sketch. There will be no line art, so there's no need to overwork it. And then add a few planes. This will add perspective and depth to the image. Just make sure to make the planes closer to the camera, more darker and vivid colored, and the further you are, the more lighter it will get because of the atmosphere. Even at this stage you can notice a certain spaciousness between the trees. Now once you're happy with the shapes, I guess, we can move on to the details. Here I'm adding a bit of gradient for the trees and just pick the tapered pen, tempered pen, and add a few lines for extra details on the trees. At this stage I'm just color picking the base of the tree and just make it a bit darker or a bit lighter. The further you are, the less details it will have, so there's no need to add too many, just make a impression. And for the trees in the background I lowered down the opacity on the layer, and here I'm just adding a bit more details on the grass. You can color pick the blue tones and just use a lower opacity to make some detail. At this point I found it easier to duplicate all the layers, mesh them down and color adjust everything. I also duplicate the layer and just adjust colors again and again and erase parts you don't like. And once I'm happy, I duplicate the adjusted layers down to each and every one of the current layer and merge everything down. Now be aware that colors and shapes will mix match between layers, but since it's early in the phase it's okay, so we already know we're going to draw over them. So now let's add some details. I'm working on different layers on parts and just draw more details on them. I use the watercolor for a smooth blend, the tapered, tempered, I don't know the name, pen. Use brushes you're comfortable with. Now don't get too lost in working on one detail at a time. Since the canvas is so large, my suggestion is to work on small parts on each and every corner on the canvas. This way you will for once finish faster, and on the second note you can actually see changes or adjustments that you need to make. If you're stuck on one detail at a time, you won't be able to notice anything else around it. Once I'm happy with the colors, I just adjust them again if I feel the need to. So for now I just wanted the sky to be a more vivid light. This is the base layer and I will use it for the rest of the scenes. Next brushes are textured one. This will speed up your drawing process and I linked them down below. This is a leaf brush and it's one of my favorites actually. It's a easy to work brush and you can mix and match with two colors. I actually prefer to tap on the canvas with this brush, but you should test out some brushes and see how you work with them. Some brushes work differently on different tablets, so it's a bit hard to say which brush you should use. Just choose a few, 2 or 3, and try to learn them and see if they work for you or they're comfortable or they're the effect that you're looking for. I'm also adding small details like moss. I actually had a bit of troubles here. I couldn't find the brush that I wanted. I was looking for a certain texture and I couldn't find it. So I just played around with more of them to see which one works for what I was looking for. I'm also using the soft eraser to make a smooth transition. And I repeat the process to the rest of the trees and also remember which brush I used. I took a small break adding the moss because I was feeling a bit stuck on the crown of the tree. So now I went back and just added a bit more colors, erased it, and a bit more of the brush leaf, the leaf brush. And I'm testing out different colors and combinations. Sometimes if I like the brush, I would just select it and place it where I think it will look better, or rotate it. Now you don't need to use the black outer frame. I just found it easier for me to use it. Sometimes I misclick out of the canvas and this frame actually helps me to focus on the center of the work. Now I'm just going back and forth with more details on different parts of the canvas. I also added some branches, and here I noticed the grass was almost at the middle of the canvas, and that's not always a pleasant look. So I selected all the layers and just push everything up a bit. Here I'm adding more details to each and every layer. I sometimes lock the layers and just add more details. This way you can still maintain the shape that you already made. So if you see the lock near the layers, it's because they're closed and you can't draw outside of them. If you're unsure, always make a new layer and test it out. And if you like it, you can always merge it down with another layer. Here I felt the need to add maybe a road or some kind of detail in the center of the work, just to attract attention. I'm just using a texture brush and just erasing parts of it and adding a bit more color, so no need to overthink it too much. And I made some new layers, placed in front of some trees and in the back of some trees. I added a bit of fog and just used the smudge tool to make it seem like it's flowing. I also found it easier for me to name all the layers, so you can easily find them when you need to. And going back with a special effect pen, I think it's called, I added some grass in different colors and shapes, and also erase parts of them so they can look more smooth. And for the last steps, I added some flowers on different layers and just used the transform tool to make them look a bit more flat, like they're standing on the ground. Erase some parts of it, make different colors, and when you're happy, duplicate all the layers, mesh them down or merge them down. Duplicate that layer and just color adjust and erase parts of it that you don't want. This is an easy way to add more colors to a drawing. I also like this process since it's very simple to use. You can also use layers with effect if you think you need them. At this stage you can always go back and add more details if you want to, but for now I'm fine with just moving to the next one. So for the next scene, we are going back to the base layer that we made and just used color adjustment. And when you're happy, just repeat the steps, merge everything down to the specific layers. And next step, I'm going in with a leaf brush. This is a different brush, but it's from the same set and it's linked down below. You can adjust the colors later, so don't worry about it too much. For now I'm just tapping the canvas and trying to figure out the colors that work. I'm also moving the background a bit up or down and changing the sky color. And I make new layers beneath the 3 layers just to add more leaves to make it more spacious. Some layers have transparency because that's an easy way to add depth to the background. Once I'm happy with it, I duplicate the leaf layers and just add a blur to them. This will make them seem like they're shining a bit. And on a different layer, I use a lighter color and just add some sun rays with a very soft airbrushy brush. And after that I go around and add more leaves and adjust them with the modifier tool so they would look a bit more flat and give the impression that they're on the ground. And I added a few more shadows and changed the grass color a bit to make it look more reddish. And I'm adding more leaves on different colors. And at the end I'm selecting all the layers, duplicate them and just color adjust everything, the same as we did last time. But I realized I forgot to add a bit of fog, so I went back on the layers, made new layers, a bit of fog, well just a bit, not too much, a bit of spark. And I'm also testing out a darker layer, which I erase some dots on it and use the smudge tool to make them uneven. But it didn't work out for me, so I kinda dropped that idea. I'm merging every layers, well the duplicate layers. I'm merging them down and just color adjust everything and add extra details like leaves and a bit more colors. Well, it's a similar process as the previous environment, but sometimes you figure out along the way that some things work better than others, so you adapt. Moving on to the next scene, using the same base, I desaturated a lot I want a wintry look, so I'm using this texture brush that reminds me of branches, like empty branches, with snow on top of them. Brush is always linked down below. Now, because it's a winter scene, usually the trees will look way darker because of the strong contrast with the snow. And because snow is white, we're doing the opposite. The objects closer to you are lighter because they're white, they're snow, and the far away you go, they become darker. And here I'm adding a lot of airbrush for the foggy effect. I also added some particles so it will look like it's snowing. And just go back and add a bit more details if you want to. But this scene is almost done. It was an easier edit. And because it was a cold environment, I can easily just add fog to add the mood. And here I'm adjusting everything and decided to go with the warmer color in the middle. And we are done with this scene. We can move on to the last one, and it's a very fantasy looking scene. I decided to go with a magical forest type, and so I adjusted the colors to be blue and purple. These colors are rare in nature, so they will look more magical and fantasy-like. Here I'm using a flower brush I've linked below and just edited for my own needs. I made the color more vivid and just adjusted with a bit of pink. I also copied the road from the first scene and make it more fantasy, looking like a purple road. I thought it will be a nice touch to add some mushrooms or something that looks like mushrooms on the trees, and I also erased parts of them. I think it's a nice detail and easy to add. You can always add details later if you need to. Using the same technique as the first drawing, I made a lot of flowers in different colors and shapes. Made them a bit flat so they will look like they're standing on the ground. Duplicate the layer and add a blurry effect to them. This will seem like they're glowing. And I went around and manually add grass in different colors and tones, and I also added some small yellow flowers just so I can have more colors into this work. It's already looking like a fantasy forest, right? For the last step I'm using a leaf brush and I'm softly pressing on the canvas with it. I'm also adjusting colors along the way and test out different color combinations to see which one works best. I also added a bit of moss, and now literally I'm just going around the canvas and add small details to it. I also added a bit of fog, and because it's a fantasy forest, fantasy environment, I decided to go with a blue tone fog and also add a lot more of it so it will be more prominent. And for the last step I'm testing out some particles. Some worked best and some didn't, so you need to test out and see which one you like more and if it's an effect you would like to use or not. And once I'm done, I merge everything down again and just color adjust everything. And that's all. I hope you liked it and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!